Hey gang, Luca Boy here. A question came into clan chat yesterday. The question came in from Ilya, and he asked if I could do a video on some attack strategies for farming and for a few other things. Now, this is a little bit bigger than I wanted to talk about, but this is a little bit more content than I wanted to talk about all at one time. But what I need to do is I need to build your foundation of knowledge first, and then we can actually go in and take a look at some of the mechanics of farming and raiding and troop selection and army composition, because there's a lot of different things that go into building an army and then farming with it. But I put together just a quick presentation just to kind of get my thoughts in order, because there's a lot to talk about, and I wanted to make sure that there was at least a little bit of structure to it. So first things first, the first thing you have to do is you have to pick your target, and the answer to the question, what is it that you're after, cannot be all of the above. Because the time is a zero-sum game. That is to say that if you're going for trophies, then you have to spend an hour or so to build up an army, and then you have to spend another half an hour looking for a base that has all four of these elements, as targets. And that really what this game comes down to is it's all about loot per hour. It's all about efficiency and speed and loot per hour. There's no point in spending 3 hours cooking up a dragon army to go out and get a 200k base, because you can do that pretty easily with a 40k army in the span of about 40 minutes. So really just consider that the speed and efficiency is really what matters when it comes to farming. But your target selection, my target selection goes like this. I only target one thing at a time. I only target elixir, which means that changes up my army composition to the cheapest army and no spells. If I'm going for gold, I have a little bit of extra latitude, to be able to punch through the walls to get through to the gold storages. So you can spend a little bit of elixir, but not so much that you don't blow 3 spells in one raid and then you don't have them for another three, for another hour and a half or another 2.5 hours. My preference is for heals because they're fast and they're cheap. I know rages are really helpful, but they're really expensive and they take a really long time to train. I find that with heals, they give me just kind of that extra punch to keep the troops alive long enough to get the job done. Now for Dark Elixir, there are a lot of different ways to do this, and the folks that I prepared this talk for are going to be kind of in the middle tier, so Town Hall 7, Town Hall 8. If you're Town Hall 9 and above, there are lots of targets in Crystal and High Gold that you can take out with Balloonian attacks or Mass Hogs. This is there are different strategies for that. What the folks that I'm focusing on for this are the people in between, and that's in between people who had just started the game to kind of those high level folks. So the strategies that I picked out for Dark Elixir are for cheap armies, and to do a little bit at a time, but just to do a little bit at a lot. To raid for small amounts really, really quickly. So it's not about going out and finding 2K drops. It's all about finding 400 piles of 400 and 500, and then you'll find that over the course of time that if you can keep your raids per hour up, that amounts to that amounts to a lot. So, and I'll share some experiences about some of the army compositions that I used in order to do that. Now, as for trophies, you will go for trophies in one of two scenarios. You'll either want to maintain your trophy count, or you'll actually want to push for trophies. The armies for pushing for trophies are much different than what you'll use to just maintain a trophy count. You can maintain a trophy count with Barch, but it's really difficult, and it takes a lot of practice, and you need some pretty high level troops in order to do that. But I'll cover that later. So anyway, talking about targeting elixir first. If you're looking to build an elixir stockpile, you have to go with the absolute cheapest army that is available. And so you have the option of Barch or Bam, so Barbarian Archer with a couple of wall breakers, or Barbarian Archer with a smattering of minions. And I'll show you what those troop compositions look a little bit later. Obviously, as you're looking for bases, you want to prioritize collector bases. Those are going to be the easiest for you to attack, and they're also going to yield the most amount of loot for the smallest amount of effort. That's a no-brainer. Where to go get them? We'll talk about where to find them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the key points here is you want a cheap army, no spells, as much as you want to resist the urge to get that to use that spell, if and only if you know that it's the difference between you making punching through that wall and pulling in a 200k prize. Because the thing about spells is if you use it and then you lose, now you're in the negative, and you want to try to whenever possible at least try to raid and cover the cost of your army. If you can do that, then you'll always stay you'll always stay at a solid elixir level, but you'll always be adding to it because your collectors will also be working in the background. So no spells if at all possible. Only use spells in the most in dire of circumstances, and that's only if you can cover the cost of your army plus the spell. And then absolutely use your clan castle troops whenever possible to augment your attacks. You can request them. I think it's every 15 or 25 minutes. So use them. That's what they're there for. Now for gold, same considerations as elixir, but you have a little bit more latitude with your spell usage. You can use your spells, you can use your rages and your heals, but try to keep it to 1 per raid because you want to make sure that they're always available for the next raid. And heals, they train up at about 30 minutes a pop. So if you have 3, you can use one raid, not use another one in the second raid, and then have another one regenerated by your next raid. As far as target selection, anything with 200k and above targets, that triggers a base review. And what a base review is, or a base assessment really, is what it is. And that's you take a look at the walls, you take a look at the mortars, you take a look at the positioning of the defenses. Are they triangulated? Yeah, but the other modifiers to this decision are, if there's enough elixir to cover your raid, and ideally you would want at least enough elixir to cover your raid. But if not, it's no big deal because you're just targeting gold. Now, if you're going for trophies, yeah, it's all about the stars, and you can. There are a lot of different ways to get the stars. You can go for 50% to get that 1 star, but ideally you should be targeting bases with about 27 trophies or more. What 27 trophies boils down to is that's 9 stars, or 9 cups rather, if you only 1 star the base, but it's 18 cups if you 2 star the base. You want to look for exposed town halls. I mean, that's an easy 1 star right there. You want to look for low walls, low defenses, poorly positioned defenses. Defenses that are in a configuration where they're not overlapping each other. We'll look at some examples of that. Maybe not in this video, but some other ones. So, as far as base assessment is concerned, you have to be careful when you're selecting your bases because let's say you're browsing in Gold 3 and you find a Town Hall 9. It's got 200k or 300k resources, but he's got 4 high-level storages. So that's 2,300 hit points that your little barbarians and archers have to whittle away at, and that's all the while getting pounded on high-level defenses. So does it make sense to go after a 300k set of resources and 4 storages, which, mind you, that's about 70,000 resources per storage, or do you go for just a lowly TH7 with 100k in 2 storages? So it's that whole axiom of a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Your percentages and your capabilities of winning a battle with a Town Hall 7 are way higher than you will with a TH9. With Town Hall 9s with at least medium upgraded defenses, you'll be lucky if you get to punch through 1 corner of the base with a cheap army. So the answer is it depends. It depends on what you're after, and it depends on how they're located and whether or not you're willing to blow a buttload of spells to get at them. So that's that's that. And now when I'm flipping through and I'm looking for bases, the first thing I assess things typically in this order, but I always look at the mortars. If they're level 5, your level 5 archers are cooked because they will one-shot them, and those archers will not be useful or available for heals. If they're level 4, game on, because you'll have at least 2 shots with every archer to go in, and that's 10 seconds for every archer versus no seconds, because typically what happens is the archers get into position, the mortars take aim, they fire, and then before your archers even get a shot off, they get one-shotted. But if you're going up against level 4 mortars, your archers will be able to survive one mortar blast, and that's usually enough to get off just a little bit of DPS. But we'll cover that in a little bit. Now the clan castle and whether or not it's easy to lure, I'll give you some visual tips on how to lure the clan castle. If you can't lure it out easily, or if you can't check to see if there's anything inside, just pass the base. There are easier targets out there. Now defenses being triangulated, what that means is defenses overlap each other. That is, one mortar is in the range of another mortar. And if you find situations like that, what overlapping defenses create are things called kill zones. And that is anything that dumps into there is going to get 5, maybe 6 defensive structures firing on them. Ideally, you want, if you find yourself a crappy base and you can attack from one side to the other while only dealing with a couple of defensive structures at any one point, those are ideal bases to attack. Now, vaults and eggs, what this is just a base with 1 or 2 walls around it that you can punch through easily. That's pretty much a no-brainer. Now, junctions are tricky. What this means is a lot of times people will try to make their own bases, and you'll be able to spot really quickly things like X junctions. And X junctions are one of the key vulnerabilities in any base, because if you can get a wall breaker to that X junction, you'll get access to 4 compartments with just 2 wall breakers. So that's that. Now, as far as tips, as you're looking for targets, take a look at their shield, see if they're in a league. If it's blacked out or grayed out, and they haven't been assigned, they're either farming in sub 2. Well, they're not going to be farming in sub 200 because you found them in your league, but chances are they're inactive. And if they're inactive, that means their collectors are full, or at least getting on their way to full. So these are great targets. Just look for that shield, and if you see that gray shield, that triggers a base review. Now, CC aggro range, I'll show you this in a little bit, but the aggro range for any clan castle is about 27 tiles, and what that equates to visually is 3 layers of buildings. So, building being a gold storage or whatever. If you were to line them up in 3 rows, that's about roughly the edge of the aggro range. So as you're looking through, you've got 30 seconds to review the base. You've kind of got to visualize what 3 layers look like, and then drop your troops within that range to pull out the clan castle. And this is another one that takes skill, and that's learning how to identify bases that have no trap potential. And what that means is they're bases with no spaces, no empty spaces in between. You'll see these as grid bases, and typically what those bases are key for, they're prime targets for hog attacks, because there's nothing inside to stop the hogs from getting to the next defensive structure except the wall. What that also means, though, is that all the traps are outside, so you'll have to be very careful with going through and picking out the traps with your barbarians, so that they don't fling your giants or your wizards, the troops that are actually going to do a lot of the work. And as far as trophy ranges are concerned, yes, this has a lot to do with how much loot you will find. And in my experience, that if you're just after gold and elixir, silver 1 and silver 2 are great for that. You'll find a lot of preemie bases. You'll find a lot of crappy bases. You'll find a lot of abandoned bases too. And those are just gold mines to attack if you're lucky enough to find them. You'll find them during the week. The weekends, you won't. You'll be lucky if you see 1 in 20 searches. But just case in point, yesterday I found, I think, like 6 or 7 of these in Gold 3, and in the span of just 6 raids, that saved me like 7 hours worth of raiding with just those few bases. So now where I sit, and that's at Town Hall 8 with all level 5 troops except for wall breakers, I sit in Gold 3, and that's because it gives me a little bit of everything. I get Dark Elixir, I get good storages, I get collector raids. Some days are drier than others, but I find that I can do a lot of damage here and stay kind of in that 1500 trophy range without too much effort with just the troops that I have. And then, of course, obviously, if you have time and you have the inclination, drop down to sub 200 and see what a lot of the hullabaloo is down there, because there's a lot of fun to be had there, but you can only do this if you've got a solid couple hours to play. And I'm talking like you can sit by your tablet or whatever it is that you have and be able to play consistently every 10 or 20 minutes, for a raid. But we'll cover that in another video. So on to army compositions. What I did was I put together some screenshots from Clashing Tools. Let me see where it is. I'll put the URL in the video. But what this tool allows you to do is to go through and tweak your army compositions and see what it's going to cost. And it'll give you some statistics like total troop hit points and how to distribute your troops amongst the barracks. And this is very helpful because this is a pretty repetitive task. You're going to have to do this over and over and over again for however many times you want to raid. You want to make it as easy as possible and require as little thought as possible. So, being able to punch in 14 barbarians and 14 archers using 2 fingers, you can do that pretty easily, and then 1 giant or whatever. Oh, actually, this is the wrong screenshot, so I didn't mean to have giants in there. So yeah, as far as the cheap and fast army compositions, BAM, Barbarian Archer Minions. These are cheap armies. They're extremely fast to cook. You can have these up and running in about 17 minutes or every 15 minutes. And if you're good about queuing, you can pretty much raid nonstop. Well, almost nonstop at least, every 10 or so minutes. The issues with these is that they are susceptible to splash damage, and then of course this uses a lot of Dark Elixir. So you have to bear that cost in mind. If you're after gold and regular elixir, then this is fine. Maybe you're flush with some DE, then by all means go ahead and do this. But it does require Dark Elixir, but it is extremely fast because you have six barracks pumping out troops instead of just 4. When you do this, remember to send in just a few minions at first, just to check for air bombs, and then send in the whole boatload of everything behind them. And then just remember, target. Don't worry about the air defenses. You have so many minions here that they'll survive. What you have to take out are the wizard towers. Those are your primary targets when you're using BAM. And then for Barch, now if you're Town Hall 8 and you only have 200 space, this is a great combination to use. 92 barbarians, 92 archers. That's 23 troops per barracks. And you can have this army up and running every 20 minutes. So if you're fast about queuing up your troops, and you're smart about queuing up your wall breakers first, ahead of your barbarians and your archers, then you can raid this combo maybe once every 20 or so minutes, which is really fast. So that's three raids per hour. Your primary targets are going to be collector raids or storages that are on the edge of bases. Don't think that you can core with this army unless unless it's an extremely valuable base and you've got a full load of spells and a good clan castle to go with you. Again, they are susceptible to splash. There are 2 deployment methods that you would use with Barch, and one is literally just dump everything in 2 waves, or to drop them in strings. And what strings are, you drop 5 barbarians, then you drop 5 archers, then you drop another 5 barbarians, and another 5 archers. And the number varies based on the base, but if you are up against, say, level 4 mortars instead of level 5 mortars, that type of deployment strategy will actually core a base, because you will have a basic amount of DPS or a consistent level of DPS being applied to any one side of the base for as many troops as you have. Steering is an issue with these bases, with this composition. What you want to do is you want to take the side buildings out first and then deploy your main army. You always want to take the outside trash buildings first so that you can steer your army into the core of the base. Now the next one, which is what I've been using pretty effectively, is 84 barbarians, 84 archers, and 4 wizards. Now I have the 4 wizards just as a little extra DPS. I find that my trophy counts are a lot more consistent with just a few wizards, and all this adds is like maybe another 6 minutes. This actually fits into my schedule pretty well, because I can do this and get some work done, and then raid once every half hour or so. So this is nice if you're kind of just busy doing something else and you don't want to sit tethered to your machine. One derivative up from that is to swap out some archers for barbarians and excuse me, for giants. And what this does is it gives the wizards a little extra meat shield to be able to go in and take bases. So using say 5 archers, 1 giant, excuse me, 5 barbarians, 1 giant, and a few wizards, and you'll be able to take out an entire side of a base just with that wizard pummeling away at whatever is there. So this is another fun one to use, and it doesn't cost that much more. It's about 57,000 elixir, so that's not too bad. Now this is the standard giant healer combo. This swaps out barbarians and archers for 2 healers. Your target priorities for this are any base that has that obviously fills your resource criteria, but then has air defenses on the outside of the base. If they're easy to get to, then it's game on. If they're not, then pass it up for another base. Now the problem that I have with this combo, although it is extremely effective, is that the base selection is really there just are not a lot of bases that satisfy this criteria. By the time you get to gold 3, a lot of bases will already have figured out the basics of base design, and they'll take their air defenses and push them inside, whatever, things like that. So I find this less effective at higher levels than I do earlier ones, but that's not to say that it doesn't work, and it is in a very effective combo. And if you can get those air defenses down, and that's a big if, you can absolutely demolish a base with just with this many wizards and that many healers, because the healers would just go to town, keeping the giants alive and the wizards alive. So now the one that I use for just opening a can of whoop ass on any base is to swap out the healers for hogs, and then it tweak the barbarians and archers. Now I've played with a lot of different numbers of hogs. I've played with 5, 6, 7, 8. The sweet spot for this, at least as far as I found, is about 8 hogs. And this gives you enough to go through and pretty much demolish, 70% of almost any base's defenses. And you want to be careful about going up. You don't want to take, say, level 1 hogs and then throw them up against level 10 defenses. Try to keep the bases level appropriate. So, but that's not to say that they won't do work, because level 1 hogs are every bit as lethal as the hogs above them. So now the reason that this works so well is that you have barbarians and archers to clear out trash buildings. You've got the giants to both distract the defenses away from the hogs, but also to soak up damage for your wizards. And then obviously you have the wall breakers to go in and start punching through to core the base. The reason that this works so well is that the hogs strip anywhere from 50 to 70% of the base's defenses, and this is using heals. So you send in your 8 hogs, you drop a heal right away, or maybe you count to 5 if they're a little bit higher. But if they're level 1, drop the heal right away and then just start following them. And what you'll notice is that as you take out the point defenses, the hogs survive longer and longer, because obviously they have fewer defenses shooting at them. Now, the bases that you want to look for these types of for this type of army, obviously shitty base designs are you're going to want to look for bases that don't have overlapping defenses, but you also want to look for bases that have all of their defenses lined up. And this is important so that the hogs stay as a group and then just move through the base as a group rather than split up, because 1 hog alone probably won't do much damage, but 5 together will just absolutely devastate a base. But yeah, it's an all-purpose army. You can take on any base, either at your level or above your level. The cook time is pretty reasonable. It's about 30, 35 minutes. The giant healer combo above with those 12 wizards, that's when you want to go ahead and just level a base. 12 wizards is enough to just about level any base. But the only problem I have with this is the cook time. Actually, this is the wrong. Let's see, 12 wizards. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the cook time for this is about 45 minutes, and that's kind of rough because you only get to raid once an hour. But for this, if you queue up your wizards early and they're cooking while you fight, then you could probably do this combo once every 30 minutes, which is pretty great. Spells and heroes, I go in with 3 heals. You can go in with some lightnings, but I find that pretty much heals are all I use, and I have level 4, so that's not too bad. hero deployment, you want to use them to clear out trash buildings. You want to deploy them towards the end so that they don't take a lot of damage, so that you can use them for successive fights, or they don't have a lot of downtime. But sometimes you can't avoid it, and they got to go in there and tank. It's no big deal. Uh, and as far as queuing troops, you always want to queue your longest cook time troops first. So as you're searching, they're cooking, and that way that's not time lost. So if you queue up a wizard and then it takes you 8 minutes to find a base, that wizard will pop the first, the moment that 4 housing spaces become available, and that's 8 minutes that you will have saved yourself. And to contrast that, if you had done an archer, you'll spend the 25 seconds to cook that archer. As soon as one spot opens up, that archer will just pop out. But then, when you get to the wizard, that's 8 minutes back in your bucket until that wizard pops out. So you want to use your queue times to your advantage, so that as you're searching for troops, your barracks are always working. So what I do after that is I queue up my donation troops, and that means that as soon as I come out of my battle, I've already got a bunch of archers cooked up and ready to go and ready to donate. You don't want to do these guys last, because then, as you're actually sitting at your computer, or excuse me, at your tablet, and somebody requests archers, you've got to wait 25 minutes until they pop out. So you queue up your long cook time first, and then your donations next, and then whatever else after that. So that's that. I'm going to follow this up with some videos of some attacks, but for right now, this should be enough to get you going. I know this went a little bit longer than I wanted, but there's a lot of information out there, and I wanted to kind of cover everything. I'll make this presentation available for download so that you can take a look at some of the arming compositions and troop distributions. But yeah, look forward to the other videos so that we can take a look at some of these attacks. Thanks.